There's a lot of good characters in the Mario series, and there's especially a lot of good characters in the Mario spin-offs. The Paper Mario series in particular is filled to the brim with plenty of unique and beloved characters, and most people tend to agree that these characters are pretty cool. But which one of these characters are the best in the entire Mario series? There are a lot of differing opinions on this. Maybe you like Goombella because of her overall usefulness and fun personality, or maybe you're a fan of Lady Bo because of her cool design, and generally she's more endearing than most of the other characters in Paper Mario 64. Or maybe you just think Mario's the best, I don't know. Fine choices all across the board, I must admit. And while I do agree that these characters are pretty cool, I still have to say that you guys are all wrong! Because the true best Paper Mario character has been right under our noses the entire time, and I don't just think he's the best Paper Mario character. No, he might just be one of the greatest characters in all of fiction. So ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the absolute peak of character design and the single greatest thing to ever grace our planet, Kooper. Now, I know what some of you guys are probably thinking right about now. Who on earth even is Kooper? And if you're one of those unfortunate souls who thought of this question, let me just say that first off, pretty embarrassing that you don't already know who the greatest Mario character of all time is. But, you know what, I'll let it slide for now. Because after this video, you too will see how awesome and cool Kooper actually is. Kooper is the second partner you get in Paper Mario, which was released on the Nintendo 64 on the 11th of August in 2000 in Japan, and the 5th of February in 2001 for America. In this game, there are 8 different partners you can get on your adventure, who can significantly help you across your journey. Except 7 of those partners are dumb stupid idiots who are very stupid and lame, leaving Kooper as the only one of the partners who aren't one of those things. You first find Kooper in Koopa Village, which is a village full of very friendly Koopa Troopas who don't work for Bowser. Now, I know that sounds kinda crazy to think about, but we're not talking about the lore building of the Mario world. That's a topic for another video. So anyways, back to my goat Kooper. The entirety of Koopa Village is being overrun by these cookie monster-esque looking things called the Fuzzies, and they're out here stealing all of the Koopa Troopas' shells. More importantly though, they also steal Kooper's shell, which, I don't know about you guys, but that move might just put the Fuzzies on some sort of watch list. I mean, it was bad enough that they were stealing all of the shells, but to steal the shell of my man Kooper is a crime to surpass any other in the history of mankind. Seriously, screw these Fuzzies, man, they're not even that well designed as Mario enemies. Worthless pieces of shit. So anyways, you then go to their hideout to play a minigame, and then you get Kooper's shell back, and then he joins your party, which is definitely a top 10 moment in Paper Mario as far as I'm concerned. What's crazy about Kooper is that he was literally destined to meet Mario from the beginning. Don't believe me? Well, in the prologue of Paper Mario, this wizard guy called Merlin helps Mario move on to the first chapter of the game, and before he lets Mario go, he tells him that eventually on his quest, he will meet a blue-shelled Koopa, which is Kooper in case any of you guys are uninitiated. Now, Merlin's able to tell the future and stuff. I mean, he was correctly able to predict that Mario was going to go to his house at all. So that meant that no matter what Mario does in his life, he was destined to meet Kooper eventually. Think about that for a second. There was statistically no way that Mario wasn't going to meet Kooper at some point in his life, which is kind of crazy to think about, but that's the topic for another video, so I don't really feel like going into too much detail about that. Anyways, now that we're done laying down the Kooper lore, let's talk about the man himself for a second. Now, I'm sure you know what a Koopa Troopa looks like. They're turtles, they have shells, you all know how they work. But Kooper goes a step further beyond the mere mortal Koopa Troopa. So you know how Koopa Troopas usually only have red or green shells, right? But Kooper, he actually has a blue shell, which you would know if you were paying attention to the video that you're currently watching. Blue shell Koopa Troopas are significantly more rare than your average red or green Koopas, so Kooper is already different enough from all the other Koopas. But Nintendo wasn't done cooking just yet, because they gave him a baller-ass bandana wrapped around his neck, another bandana wrapped around his arm, I at least think that's a bandana, I don't actually really know what that is. And they give him a bandage on his cheek that you can't see in the actual game, it only really shows up in promotional art and stuff. Still, this is peak character design and you can't tell me otherwise. I mean, listen, it would have been cool enough if he just had a blue shell and that was it, but then Nintendo dripped Kooper up way more than any of us kids playing the N64 would have ever expected. Except me, because I didn't play the N64 growing up. Now, even though Kooper has a cool design, he also needs to have a cool personality, and luckily, Kooper delivers, because unlike all of the other Koopa Troopas, Kooper has dreams and aspirations that he wants to follow. His biggest goal in life is to become an archaeologist so he can be more like his role model, some guy named Colorado who lives next to him in Koopa Village. Eventually, you actually get to meet up with Colorado, and he comes along with you for some adventuring. Unfortunately, Colorado is kind of an idiot who always gets himself into trouble, so I guess that really just goes to show that you should never really meet your heroes, especially if they turn out to be as stupid as Colorado here. Or at least that's what Nintendo wants you to think. However, despite seeing Colorado in person, Kooper still has a lot of respect for the guy. I mean, sure, Colorado might mess up a bunch, but Kooper still believes in his abilities to do things and doesn't make fun of him, because that's the kind of guy that Kooper is. Even at somebody's worst, Kooper still believes in them and expects them to do great things in life. So basically, Kooper would make a much better role model than Colorado is all I'm saying. Kooper even joins Colorado's expedition at the end of the game to finally live out his dreams, which, let's be honest, Kooper would do a much better job at being an archaeologist than Colorado. Outside of those things, though, there are a couple of other things that are cool about Kooper. He's apparently great friends with Goombario, who's the first partner you get in the game, and Kooper always likes to crack jokes and make playful jabs at him. And we know this because in some of Goombario's titles, he also throws some jabs at Kooper, so we can assume that the feelings are both mutual for these two. They better be. Kooper also has some epic moments in Chapter 7 of the game. Basically, in this chapter, Mario and his pals try to climb a mountain, and on this mountain, there are creatures who can shapeshift into anyone imaginable. And Mario experiences this firsthand when he tries to hit a switch with our pal Kooper here. After Kooper hits the switch, you can see that an imposter gets summoned along with the real Kooper, and Mario has to choose which Kooper is the real one. Mario knows which one is the real Kooper because the imposter calls Mario a moron, which is something that the regular Kooper would never even consider doing. So basically, what this scene means is that, well, I don't know, it doesn't really have anything to do with how cool Kooper is, it's just a scene that has Kooper in it. I wanted to include it in the video, because it's about Kooper. That's also not the only time that Kooper deals with identity theft in this chapter, because later on when Mario is exploring the Crystal Palace, more creatures try to disguise themselves as Kooper, which obviously doesn't work because none of them actually disguise themselves as Kooper, even if Luigi does look kinda similar if you really think about it. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that these guys will never be as awesome as the real Kooper, and try as they might, they can't ever fully impersonate him to a completely accurate degree. Oh, yeah, and these creatures also pull this tactic with Bombette as well, who's another partner in this game, but nobody really cares about that scene because it's not about Kooper, and Bombette is really lame, and just get the f*** out of the video, no one likes you. Kooper also gets letters delivered to him via the post office in Toad Town, so we know that there are people who care about him in the world of Paper Mario. He gets a letter from Colorado's wife, which isn't interesting enough for me to talk about. He also gets a letter from Kooper, who's the Koopa Troopa who stands next to the entrance of Koopa Village. He basically just gets jealous of all of the cool things that Kooper is doing, and to be honest, I don't really blame him. The last letter he gets, though, is actually the most interesting one, because it's from Kooper's #1 fan. Now, we never get to see this guy in the actual game, so it's ambiguous who he even is in the first place. The identity of this guy has been one of the biggest mysteries when it comes to Paper Mario for a long time, but luckily, after years of research, I can finally say I have an answer as to who this guy is. It was actually me the whole time. You see, I actually went to Nintendo's HQ back in the day and specifically told them to put me in the game as Kooper's #1 fan, and that's how Nintendo got the inspiration for putting that letter in the game. It's because of me. Because I am Kooper's #1 fan. So by this point in the video, you should have all realized that Kooper is the greatest video game character in the history of the world. And based on everything I told you, how could you not think that? But let's say that, hypothetically, you still aren't entirely hooked on Kooper at this point, which is fair, I guess. But what if I told you we haven't even gotten to the craziest part of Kooper's character yet? Yup, that's right. Buckle up, gamers, because we're taking a look at what he can do in battle now. All of the partners in Paper Mario have different abilities that are specific to them. Goombario can head bonk enemies, Bombette blows up enemies, Bo turns Mario invisible, you know, basic stuff like that. But with Kooper, things get kind of insane. So, his first two abilities are not really anything special, right? He can turn into a Koopa shell and attack an enemy, and he can do the same thing in another attack, but for all enemies instead of just one. Those two abilities are relatively tame, all things considered. But his third and fourth abilities? Bro. Kooper's third ability is called Dizzy Shell, and by using this ability, Kooper spins around in his shell at such an insane speed that he literally makes all of his enemies dizzy just by speeding past them. And I don't know about you, but I feel like Kooper's not realizing how powerful he is when doing this attack. Like, instead of just making the enemy dizzy, he could use all of that speed to just ram into the enemy full force. I feel like that would just send them to another dimension at that point. Like, seriously, the amount of speed that Kooper's building up in his shell is physically impossible to obtain by any other person. Usain Bolt might be fast, and Sonic the Hedgehog might also be fast, but I don't think any of them can compare to Kooper, honestly. With all of that being said, though, Kooper limits his power by just making his enemies dizzy, but his fourth ability, there are no such limitations with the fourth ability, because in Kooper's final ability, he can literally create fire out of thin air. Okay, like, I can kind of understand the Dizzy Shell attack if I take into account cartoon logic, but no amount of cartoon logic can explain this. Bro is literally manipulating the molecular structure of the universe to create fire, all for a move that does like 6 damage to enemies. And I think this just goes to show how powerful Kooper actually is. All Kooper wants to do is become an archaeologist when he grows up, but I think that's the least of his concerns, because he can literally bend elements to his will whenever he feels like it. This guy could literally be a natural threat to society if he chooses, but Kooper is a good-hearted person, so he instead uses his supernatural powers to rescue the princess and defeat Bowser. And if that's not inspiring, I don't know what is. And that's basically it for why Kooper's the greatest character in any medium ever. His design is raw as hell, he has some pretty interesting lore, he can create fire whenever he chooses to, and he's Kooper. I hope I was able to convince you, the viewer, as to why Kooper is awesome, and I think we can all agree that he's at least a top 10 Mario character. And if you're still not convinced even after all of that, he got 56 votes in Sir Phyllis's Mario character ranking, along with Cataquack, Kirby, and Stanley the Bugcatcher, so I don't want to hear any arguments against him. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you around. Take care.